I wanted to jump on very quickly and give you some ideas for D is for donut. So here's some things that we did today. We decorated the letter D with a brown crayon, and then I just took some paper. Let me show you. Just some paper and a hole punch, and I made my own sprinkles. And so we just glued the sprinkles onto the letter D, and that was a lot of fun. And for art today, I thought this was cute too. This is just a paper plate donut. So we just glued two, or actually I just taped two paper plates together. And then we put some pink frosting and some sequins for the sprinkles, but you could also use the same sprinkles like you did for letter D. So that's the art project. For a game for math, this was really cute, and you can get all the links and printables at my website. The link is below. But we did this little math game, and you can play this two ways. You're trying, of course, to get the little doggy down to the donut. And so the way that you can do it is just with one or two dice. So if you use one, you can roll and you can move the doggy that many spaces. But if you use two, you can roll, and then let me turn it so you can see. You can count the number. So 4 plus 2 is how many all together? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so then you can move the little doggy that many spaces. Let's do that together really quick. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you're ready for adding, your child could use 2, and if you need to, just use 1 and count the dots if you're still working on number practice. Okay, so for science, we did something cool too. This was really neat. We talked about, I asked the kids, I said, are donuts like flat like a pancake, or are they fluffy? And of course, donuts are fluffy. They're not flat like a pancake. And did you know what makes them fluffy like that? It's something that bakers put in the dough. It's called yeast. And this is yeast. That's what it looks like. So we filled up 2 jars. Both of the jars had about a 1/3 cup of warm water. And then both of the jars got 1 teaspoon of yeast. But one of the jars also got a teaspoon of sugar. Now, yeast, when it mixes with warm water, blows bubbles. But do you know what makes yeast blow even more bubbles? Sugar. Those bubbles are called carbon dioxide bubbles. They're the same gas that we breathe out. We breathe in oxygen and out carbon dioxide, and that's the same kind of bubbles that yeast blows. Now, I don't have a donut, but I do have a cinnamon roll, and let me open it up. Do you see some holes in that cinnamon roll? You see some little holes? Do you know what those are? Those are where the yeast blew bubbles, and the bubbles popped. The more bubbles, like in the jar that has the sugar, the more bubbles, and sugar causes more bubbles to grow in the yeast, the more holes there'll be, and that's going to make the donut nice and fluffy, just airy with lots of holes. So let's take a look inside the 2 jars. This jar had the warm water and just the yeast, no sugar. A few bubbles. Now let's take a look in the jar. Oh, I can already see on the side of the jar lots of bubbles, but let's look inside and see. Yes, oh, look at all those bubbles. So that's why donuts are nice and fluffy, because the yeast loves that sugar and blows more bubbles the more sugar you have, and it causes all those little bubbles to pop when you're baking the dough, and that's what makes the donuts so nice and fluffy. For story time today, we read If You Give a Dog a Donut. So I hope you have some fun today with letter D. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.